The man who wrote The Art of the Deal, U.S. President Donald Trump, is not saying many good things about the deal that Theresa May has made with the EU. Break it down for us. What's going on? What did Trump say?
Well, first of all, what he said was no more than the truth. And I mean, the master deal maker, which is what Donald Trump believes himself to be, is for once absolutely right. I mean, not perhaps for once. I mean, on this occasion, he's definitely right. She's come back with a rotten deal in which the EU has done very well, as Donald Trump rightly said. They've got a very good deal, and Theresa May has got an awful deal. And he's also made a further point, which is absolutely right, which is that if Theresa May wants to negotiate trade agreements with the US, this deal prevents her making them. And I mean, he is totally correct about that. It's incredible that it has to be spelled out by him. But if you look at the British newspapers in the hours after Donald Trump made those comments, you see the amazing thing that they're actually agreeing with him. They're saying what he says is absolutely right, because it is. So, I mean, the master deal maker, in his own pungent way, has spoken truth.
All right, get to what you just said a little bit, that Trump said that this jeopardizes trade between the UK and the US. And I'll read you what Theresa May said, and I'll read you a quote here. May told broadcasters on Tuesday that the agreement struck with the EU, and I quote, clearly identifies that the UK would have an independent trade policy after Brexit and would be free to strike trade deals with countries around the rest of the world, including the US. Who's right? Who's wrong here? May says that she can't strike deals. Trump says that she won't be able to.
Well, in a short word, Donald Trump is right, Theresa May is wrong. And if you go to The Guardian, you will see a long article by Peter Mandelson, an arch Remainer, but an EU trade commissioner, and he sides with Trump on this issue, and he's right. Now, what Theresa May's deal does, and I've discussed this many, many times, is that it keeps Britain within the European Union's customs union. Moreover, Britain cannot leave that customs union without the agreement of the European Union. Being a part of the EU customs union means that you negotiate with the rest of the EU trade agreements as a bloc. Britain cannot negotiate separate agreements with the United States on trade because doing so is diametrically contrary to the customs union membership that Theresa May has negotiated as part of this deal. Now, it is totally simple. It is very straightforward. You have to plough through the 585 pages of the withdrawal agreement to get to the gist of it. But that is what that agreement says. Everybody knows it. Donald Trump says it. Theresa May is in denial about it.
Why? Why is she making... I mean, she says clearly identifies what's going through her head. What do you think is going through her head?
It's very bizarre, actually, because, I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg actually put it very well a couple of weeks ago when he said she says one thing and it isn't compatible with the truth. What he says and what is true are not the same things. Now, whether she is intentionally deceiving people or whether she can somehow deceived herself about this, it's very difficult to understand, because what happens with Theresa May, and it is causing more and more exasperation, is that she goes into the House of Commons, she goes on television, she gives interviews, and she goes on repeating exactly the same untrue things, like some kind of broken record, even after people have pointed out to her how wrong those things are. We've had this third time now where this has happened in the House of Commons. And remarkably, there was an extraordinary incident, which is being reported now in the British media, where a group of Labour MPs were brought in to speak, not to Theresa May herself, but to some of her officials. And they said the same nonsense. And I mean, some of these Labour MPs who the attempt was to try to get them to vote for this deal because there aren't enough Conservative MPs who would vote for it to pass. Anyway, these Labour MPs left saying that they were, what they were told was nonsense. Actually, they used much stronger words that I don't want to use in a programme of this kind, and that it had made them even more determined to vote against it. So, as I said, it's delusional. If it's intended to deceive people, it's not deceiving people, and it's incomprehensible why Theresa May persists with it. I mean, it sounds totally dissonant. It sounds bizarre.
How concerned do you think Trump really is with the Brexit negotiations? I mean, is this something that he's got as a top priority? I mean, will he be discussing this at the G20? Is this something that concerns him, or do you think he's just watching it from a little bit from afar, kind of seeing May lead the UK into disaster and chuckling? Kind of a little bit, because you said many times that Trump doesn't really have much of an affinity for Theresa May.
I think actually you took the words out of my mouth. I think he's laughing. I think if you listen to his comments, I mean, it's obvious to me that he's laughing. First of all, no, he isn't particularly concerned about trade deals between Britain and the US. I think this is not for him the great priority at all. If you're looking at trade, he's far more concerned about trade with China and the oil price situation and those sort of things. I mean, Brexit and trade deals the British might negotiate are far down on the list of priorities for him. But he doesn't like Theresa May at all. He gets on well with people in Britain who are on the hard Brexit line, like Nigel Farage. And here he is, twisting the knife into Theresa May, another Liberal politician, another European Liberal politician whom he dislikes and who he makes no secret that he dislikes, and he's twisting that knife by telling the truth, by telling it as it is, which is what Donald Trump so often does.
All right, so take us now to what awaits us with Brexit now. What's the process? Where are we at as of today, and what do we have to look forward to going this week?
Right. What we have is what we've been talking about in previous programs as a draft agreement. It's no longer a draft agreement because the European Union has signed it off. What Theresa May now has to do is she's got to get the British Parliament to accept it. The vote is going to happen on the 11th of December. All the indications at the moment are that it will be rejected, and rejected resoundingly, not by a small margin, but by a very big one. The attempt to try and persuade the Labour MPs to come round and vote for it backfired horribly. Theresa May's attempts to win over the Northern Irish parties are apparently going nowhere. So it looks like that vote on the 11th of December is going to fail. Now, my own prediction is that when it fails, and it does really look like, contrary to some of the things I've said before, that it will fail, I think the pressure on Theresa May to quit will at that point grow very fast. I cannot see her succeed at clinging on when this central plank of her policy, when this deal that she has nailed her reputation to, fails in the House of Commons.
I read some reports, and I'd like to hear your take, Alexander, that some MPs, some members of Parliament, they said that they would support her deal or support her renegotiating it if she gives a timeline as to when she's going to step down. Is this a true report?
It may be, but I mean, I would be careful assuming that, because I mean, I think if Theresa May were to announce today that she will resign once the deal is passed, or once Brexit happens formally in March, I think actually at the moment that might even actually harden some of the opposition to the deal at the moment. I think the calculation that many people are making within the Conservative Party is that if the deal is voted down, Theresa May will go anyway, sooner rather than later, and that the deal itself is so bad because of the way it indefinitely commits Britain to remaining within the customs union, which it cannot leave without the EU's permission. I think that is such a awful deal that I think whatever promises Theresa May makes to stay or go is still not going to be enough to persuade people to vote for it.
All right, and very quickly, so if Theresa May is possibly on her way out, maybe even before the year ends, who is the Conservative Party looking to push up to lead the party?
You see, Alex, once again,
candidates, any names rise to the top at all?
Once again, unerringly, you put your finger on the major problem, because it's very difficult to say at the moment who it would be. Now, there's once again a campaign to build up a man called Sayed Javid, who is the Home Secretary. That's the Interior Minister. I don't think, frankly, he's a very convincing political leader for the Conservative Party or for the government. And I mean, his position on Brexit seems to be an extremely vague one. Boris Johnson, presumably he will try, but I think he's lost a lot of support, which he once had, and I don't think people take it very seriously. There's a Brexit minister called David Davis who resigned from the cabinet and who's known to be a hardline Brexiter. I think, again, it's difficult to see him being convincingly accepted by many people. Theresa May is bringing back a former colleague who's very loyal to her, called Amber Rudd, who is now once again in the British cabinet after being forced to resign over an entirely different issue a few months ago. I think the fact that Amber Rudd is so close to Theresa May makes it most unlikely that she will become Prime Minister. And lastly, there is a man called Michael Gove, who we've talked about before, who is the arch Brexiter left in the cabinet. I think far too many people dislike him. So I've run through a list of names. I don't think any one of these people looks, frankly, very convincing. And that is Theresa May's big advantage, because she's able to say it's either me or chaos. And when that choice is put to people in that way, that makes a lot of people very nervous because they don't want to have chaos.
So very quickly, is there a possibility that it gets voted down December 11th, but May stays in power? Is there that possibility?
No. There is that possibility. Personally, I don't believe it will happen. My own view is it will be voted down. I think I've come round to the view that it will be voted down. I think that Theresa May's position at that point will be so discredited that it will be untenable. I think it will be unsustainable. I think there will be a major effort within the Conservative Party to find a convincing Prime Minister who is more than just a caretaker. If that fails, and there is a major crisis within the Conservative Party, I think the pressure to hold a general election will become enormous. I think at that point there would be a general election, and I think at that point the overwhelmingly likelihood is that Jeremy Corbyn would become Prime Minister, because nature abhors a vacuum and political nature is no different.
Incredible. Alexander, incredible.
I've never known Britain to be so badly led as it is now, and the political situation to be so confusing and chaotic as it is at the moment.
It's incredible that the whole Conservative Party doesn't have one person to succeed. A terrible leader like May. I mean, the bar is not set very high whatsoever.
No, it isn't. And it is extraordinary, as you correctly say, that the Conservative Party, the party of people like Thatcher, like Churchill, like Macmillan, like Disraeli, if you want to go back far enough, that it cannot produce a convincing and strong leader. I mean, it is an unheard of situation in British politics. And one has to ask, and this is something we may want to discuss on another programme, how has it been allowed to happen that way? I mean, there is a lot of, that's a very valid question. I can come up with some answers, But that is a whole big issue that we will have to discuss, I think, some other time, because it's such a big issue that we can't really fit it in to a program like this.
Yeah, I think it warrants a video so we could kind of chronicle how the party of Thatcher has become the party of Theresa May.
Well, exactly. And why? Because, of course, as we both remember, there were people who were comparing Theresa May and talking about her one time as the new Thatcher, and why she clearly is not the new Margaret Thatcher.
That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much, guys. Go to the Duran shop, buy a t-shirt. We've launched a bunch of new shirts. You'll love them. Buy a t-shirt. It really helps us out. And also, you will find links to our PayPal and our Patreon pages in the description down below. Please donate. That also helps us out. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Until next time, take care.